That brown bottle under your sink, the one you forgot you owned, it costs about $1. And the roaches in your walls are more afraid of it than anything in a can with a skull on the label. I will say that again, plainer, $1, one bottle, hydrogen peroxide. And the men who charge you $200 to spray your kitchen have known what it can do for a very long time. They just have no reason to tell you. I was raised plain in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. No exterminator ever pulled into our lane. We did not have a man in a uniform knock on the door with a clipboard and a contract. We had a brown bottle, a bar of plain soap, and the things my grandfather handed down because letting them be forgotten would have been a kind of waste, and we did not waste. Stay with me, because around the middle of this, I am going to show you exactly how to clear an ant highway across your kitchen counter in one evening for less than the price of a cup of coffee, the same way my mother did it on a hot July morning when I was a boy. But first, do me one small favor. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Just your state or your county, and tell me which one is the worst for you right now. Roaches, ants, or mice. One word is fine. I read them, and it tells me who I am talking to. Now, let me tell you what the world forgot. Most folks think a pest problem is a strength problem. They think the bug is tough, so they need something tougher, a stronger spray, a meaner poison, a bigger bill. So they walk into the big store, and they stand in that aisle, and they look at 40 different bottles, and every single one is built to make you feel like the cheap one will not be enough. That is the trick. That is the whole trick. Because a roach is not strong. A roach is careful. A roach lives and dies by what it can smell and what it cannot. An ant is the same. A mouse is the same. They do not see your kitchen the way you do. They read it like a letter, written in scent left behind by the ones who came before. Take away the letter, and they are lost. They wander. They leave. And hydrogen peroxide, that plain brown bottle, is one of the simplest ways the human hand has ever found to erase that letter. Let me show you why, because once you understand the why, you will never look at that bottle the same way again, and you will never overpay for a can of poison again either. Hydrogen peroxide is just water with one extra piece of oxygen clinging to it. That is the whole thing. Water is 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Peroxide is 2 hydrogen and 2 oxygen. That one extra oxygen does not want to be there. It is loose. It is restless. The moment it touches something dirty, something living, something greasy, it lets go and it grabs on and it tears that thing apart at a level too small for your eyes. That is the fizz you see when you put it on a cut. That is not the cut. That is the peroxide ripping into bacteria and dead tissue and breaking it down into nothing but water and air. Now, think about what a roach trail actually is. When a roach walks your counter at night, it leaves grease and droppings and a chemical mark behind it, a smell that says to every other roach in the wall, "This way, food safety come." That smell is the whole reason you see 1 and then 20. They are not lucky. They are following directions. You wipe it with a regular rag and warm water, you smear it, you spread the letter around, but you do not erase it. The scent is oily, and water just pushes oil into new corners. Hydrogen peroxide does not push it, it oxidizes it. That loose oxygen breaks the greasy scent, compounds apart chemically, so there is nothing left to follow. The roach climbs up that same path the next night and finds, for the first time in its short life, silence. No directions, no letter, just a clean, bright, dead end. Here is how you do it, and I want you to do this exactly. Take a clean spray bottle, fill it with the plain 3% peroxide straight from the dollar bottle. Do not mix it with vinegar in the same bottle, and I will tell you why later, because that part matters more than people think. At night, after the dishes are done and the lights go low, spray down the baseboards, the back of the stove, under the toe kick of the cabinets, the hinge side of the pantry door, anywhere you have seen them travel. Let it sit 5 minutes, then wipe. Do that 3 nights in a row. By the 3rd night, you will see fewer. By the end of the week, that confident night traffic across your counter slows to almost nothing. because you have not killed an army, you have erased the map the army was marching by. Penn State's extension people have written plainly that the single most effective thing a homeowner can do against cockroaches is not poison at all, it is sanitation. Removing the food, the grease, and the trails. Take away what they read and what they eat, and the strongest poison in the world becomes unnecessary. The land-grant universities have been saying this quietly for decades. We just never needed the bulletin to tell us. My grandfather knew it with a rag and a brown bottle. But here is what troubles me, and it should trouble you too. If a $1 bottle and a clean rag can break a roach problem, why does an entire industry exist to sell you the opposite? Why is the cheap, simple truth always tucked on the bottom shelf and the $40 answer always at eye level, lit up in red? Hold that question, because it only gets worse from here, and the answer where it really starts to sting. And that, friends, is exactly the kind of knowing that should never be lost. And if you want more of it, all in one place, I want to tell you about something that might belong on your shelf. I put the old cures, the plain remedies, the handed-down methods for pests, soil, and harvest into a pair of books called The Garden Blueprint and The Harvest Blueprint, and together they are bound as the Complete Garden Field Edition. Everything in one place for $97, the way a good reference should be bought once and kept. You can find the link in the description below, and I think you will recognize the voice in those pages as the same one you are hearing right now. But now, back to what I promised you, because the ants are where it really starts to sting, and I am not finished with that story yet. You have seen it, that single thread of ants marching across the counter to a crumb you did not even know was there. Straight line, perfect order, like someone painted it on. That line is the cruelest letter of them all, and it is the easiest to erase, and almost nobody does it right. When a scout ant finds food in your kitchen, she walks back to the nest, dragging her body low, leaving a trail of scent the whole way. The others follow it nose to the ground, and every ant that walks it lays down more scent on top, so the trail gets louder and stronger with every single ant. That is why a few ants become a river in an hour. They are reinforcing the road. Most folks grab a spray and kill the ants they can see on the counter, and they feel good for a day, but the road is still painted on the counter. The scent trail does not die with the ant. So the next morning, a new scout finds the old road, and the river comes right back, and you swear these ants are immortal. They are not immortal. You just keep killing the travelers and leaving the road. Hydrogen peroxide erases the road. That restless oxygen breaks down the oily scent compounds the ants lay down, the very thing they are following. Wipe the trail with peroxide, and the next ant comes out, lowers her head to find the path, and there is nothing there. She wanders in confused little circles. She cannot tell the others where to go because she herself does not know anymore. Here is the way my mother did it. On that hot July morning I told you I would come back to. I was maybe 7. The ants had found the sugar tin, and there was a line of them from the window frame clear across to the shelf. She did not panic, and she did not send anyone to town for anything. She took the brown bottle, poured a little onto a cloth, and she wiped that whole line. The window frame, the sill, the shelf, the wall behind it, slow and patient, end to end. Then she found the little crack by the window where they were coming in, and she soaked a cotton string in peroxide and tucked it right into the gap. By supper, the line was gone. Not fewer, gone. And it did not come back that summer. You can do the exact same thing tonight. Find the line. Follow it both directions, all the way to the wall, all the way to the crack. Wipe every inch of it with the plain 3% peroxide on a cloth. Then treat the entry point, the crack or the gap or the weep hole, with a peroxide-soaked cotton ball or string, and leave it there a few hours. You are not just clearing today's ants. You are erasing the address. Now, the books will tell you ants are drawn back to the same nesting sites for years, sometimes for the life of the colony. Researchers studying ant foraging found that a trail, once laid and reinforced, can guide a colony for days even after the food is gone, purely on the strength of the scent left behind. Days. That is how long that invisible road stays painted if you do not erase it. So every morning you wipe the ants and not the trail, you are buying yourself one more identical morning. And here is where the money part starts to make my jaw tighten. Walk that store aisle and look at the ant products, the baits, the sprays, the little plastic traps, the granules for outside, the gel for inside, the perimeter concentrate you are supposed to mix and reapply every season forever. There is a product for every step, and not one of them tells you the simplest truth, which is that the road itself is the problem and you already own the thing that erases it. Because if you knew that, you would buy one bottle a year instead of 6 products a season. Someone profits from you not knowing. Hold on to that, because by the time we get to the mice, you are going to see it is not one someone. It is a whole machine built to keep you spending on a problem the plain people solved with what they already had on the shelf. But before the mice, I owe you something else about that brown bottle, because there is a way to make it stronger, and it is still under $1. Plain peroxide erases trails, but sometimes you want to do more than erase the road. Sometimes you want to make a place actively unwelcome. And here is where most folks make a dangerous little mistake, so listen close. Peroxide and white vinegar both clean, so people think, I will mix them together in one bottle and make something twice as strong. Do not. When you combine them and seal them up, they form peracetic acid, and in a closed bottle, that can build up in ways you do not want around your hands and your face and your lungs. That is not the old way, and it is not a safe way. The safe way, the way that actually works, is to use them one after the other, not mixed. In turn, spray the surface with the peroxide first. Let it sit, let it do its work, breaking down the grease and the scent and the germs. Wipe it. Then, separately, go over the same surface with plain white vinegar on a fresh cloth. The vinegar leaves behind a sour, sharp smell that ants and roaches genuinely dislike walking across, and it lifts any mineral film the peroxide left behind. One, then the other. Never together in a sealed bottle. That two-step peroxide then vinegar turns a clean surface into a surface the bugs do not even want to test. You have erased the old letter, and then you have hung a sign they cannot stand to read. This is the kind of thing my people did without ever calling it chemistry. We just knew the brown bottle did one job and the sour jug did another, and you did not pour them in the same pail. The English have a whole science explaining why now. We had a rule of thumb and a clean kitchen. Now, let me get to the mice, because this is where the cheap bottle does something most folks would never believe it could. You cannot poison a mouse with hydrogen peroxide, and I am not going to lie to you and say you can. Anyone who tells you to leave a dish of peroxide out to kill a mouse is selling you a story. That is not how this works, and I will not insult you with it. But here is the truth that actually matters, and it is better than the lie. A mouse problem is almost never a mouse problem. It is a scent problem and a trail problem, exactly like the roach and exactly like the ant. A mouse runs the same paths over and over, tight against the wall, because a mouse is half blind and terrified and survives by following the smell of where it has been safe before. They leave grease marks, they leave droppings, they leave urine, and that urine is the loudest letter in the whole house. It says, "To every mouse that comes after, one of us lived here and did not die. This is a safe road. Use it." And it lingers. It soaks into the baseboard, the back of the cabinet, the subfloor. You can trap 1 mouse, 2 mice, a dozen mice, and as long as that scent letter is soaked into the wood, new mice keep finding the safe road and moving right in. You are bailing a boat with a hole in it. This is the part the trap companies and the spray companies are very happy for you to never figure out, because a perpetual mouse problem sells a lot of traps. Hydrogen peroxide is one of the few cheap things in your house that actually breaks down the compounds in mouse urine. That restless oxygen oxidizes the proteins and the scent the way it does everything else, so the letter stops being readable. The road goes quiet. New mice arrive at the edge of your house, lower their noses, and find no welcome, no safe path, no sign that anyone of their kind ever survived in there. Here is exactly what to do, and you can start this weekend. First, find the runs Look along the baseboards for faint dark smudges, little greasy lines where their bodies have rubbed the same path again and again. Look in the back corners of the lower cabinets, under the sink, behind the refrigerator, along the basement sill. Put on a pair of gloves. This part is not glamorous, but it is the whole game. Take your 3% peroxide and saturate a cloth and wipe every run, every smudge, every corner where you have seen droppings. After you have cleaned the droppings away, get into the gap where the floor meets the wall. Soak it, do not just dab it. Let the oxygen do its work for 10 minutes, then wipe it down. Then go find where they come in. A mouse can fit through a gap the width of a pencil. Check where pipes enter the wall under the sink. Check the corners of the basement. Check behind the stove. Anywhere you find a gap, clean it with peroxide first to kill the welcome scent, and then pack it tight with steel wool. They cannot chew through steel wool the way they chew through foam and wood. You have erased the invitation and locked the door in the same afternoon. The University of Florida's Extension folks put it plain in their rodent guidance. The most reliable, lasting control is exclusion and sanitation. Seal the openings, remove the food and the filth they are drawn to. Everything else, they say, is temporary. The trap catches tonight's mouse. The sealed, scrubbed, scent dead wall keeps tomorrow's mouse from ever wanting in. We knew this on the farm without a single bulletin. A clean granary with no spilled feed and no soaked corners had no mice, and a dirty one always did, and no amount of cats changed that arithmetic. The cat was never the cure, the clean was the cure. Now I want to speak to those of you who are sitting there thinking, this is fine for a young couple in a brand new house, but my home is old. My kitchen is 40 years lived in. My basement has seen things. The trails are everywhere, soaked into everything. This is too far gone for a brown bottle. I hear you. And I am telling you that you, more than anyone, are exactly who this is for. Because an old, established home is not a disadvantage here. It is just a home with more letters written into it, and every one of them can be erased the same way. You do not need to gut anything. You do not need special equipment. You do not need a new build. You need a methodical weekend and that dollar bottle. Here is what I want you to do. And you can do it this Saturday with nothing but peroxide, a spray bottle, gloves, a few rags, and a roll of steel wool. Start in one room, just one. The kitchen is usually the worst, so start there. Pull the things away from the walls where you can, the stove, the trash can, the boxes in the pantry. You are going to be amazed and a little disgusted at what is back there, and that is good, because that is exactly where the letters are written. Spray the baseboards top to bottom. Spray behind the stove, spray the back of the lower cabinets, the toe kick, the corners, let it sit while you do the next stretch, then come back and wipe. Work the whole perimeter of the room, slow, like you are reading it. You are not cleaning to make it pretty. You are cleaning to erase 100 invitations. The bugs and the mice have been reading for years. Then walk the same room and find the gaps, the crack by the pipe, the space under the cabinet, the spot where the baseboard pulled away. Treat each one with peroxide, then seal it. Steel wool for the mouse holes, a dab of caulk for the bug cracks. One room, one weekend. And the difference by next week will tell you everything you need to know about whether to do the rest of the house. Because here is what happens in an old home that nobody warns you about. The years of grease, the years of trails, the years of soaked in scent, they build up into what I would call a permanent welcome mat. The pests are not invading your old house. They are accepting an invitation that has been sitting out, getting louder for decades. The brown bottle takes the mat away, and it costs you $1. Now think about what you have been told to spend instead. The average American household pays an exterminator somewhere between $100 and $300 a visit, and the contracts are built around coming back quarterly. Monthly, in some plans, year after year, do the simple arithmetic. That is $1,000 and more every few years, much of it for a man to spray a chemical perimeter that, by the university's own research, does far less than sealing the gaps and erasing the trails you can erase yourself. I am not telling you every pest problem can be handled with a bottle. A house full of termites in the beams needs a real expert, and I will never tell you otherwise, because pretending would be its own kind of dishonesty. But the roaches in your kitchen, the ants on your counter, the mice in your cabinet, the everyday plagues that make up the great bulk of what people pay and pay and pay for, those bow to sanitation and exclusion, to clean and sealed, to the brown bottle and the steel wool. And that, friends, is the thing the machine does not want sitting in the front of your mind, because there is no quarterly contract on a $1 bottle of peroxide. I told you this villain only gets bigger. So let me name it plainly now. It started as someone profits from you buying the $40 can instead of the $1 bottle. But it is bigger than one can on one shelf. It is an entire industry. The manufacturers, the big chains, the service contracts, all of it built on one quiet assumption, which is that you will never find out how little you actually needed. They are not lying to you with words. They are lying to you with the layout of the aisle, with the eye-level shelf, with the red label, with the smiling man at your door who never once mentions that the cheapest fix in the whole store is the one he hopes you walk right past. My people were never inside that machine, not because we were clever, but because we were plain, and being plain means you learn to do the most with the least, and you hand it down so it does not get lost. The English forgot. Now, you are remembering, and now I am going to give you the one I saved for the end, the one almost nobody knows, the one that turns the brown bottle from a cleaner into something that actually reaches the bug where it hides. Everything I have told you so far works on the surface. The trails, the scent, the welcome mat. But what about the ones you never see? The roaches deep in the wall void, the ones tucked behind the dishwasher, in the warm dark where no rag reaches. Here is the secret, and it is older than you would think. Hydrogen peroxide loves to be combined with one ordinary cheap thing, and it is not vinegar, it is plain sugar and a little baking soda. The roaches will not walk to plain peroxide. But they will walk a long way for sugar. So you make a paste, a spoon of sugar to draw them, a spoon of baking soda, and just enough 3% peroxide to wet it into a thick paste. The sugar is the dinner bell. The roach cannot resist it. It carries bits back into the wall, into the harborage, to the others. And inside the roach, that combination goes to work in the dark gut where no spray you bought at the store ever reaches, the place the whole colony hides precisely because nothing reaches it. You dab that paste, small dabs the size of a pea, on little squares of cardboard. You tuck them where the roaches travel, and you do not. Behind the refrigerator, under the sink, in the back corner of the lower cabinet, in the gap behind the stove, up high too, on top of the cabinets where it is warm, because that is where they gather and where you never look. Leave them. Replace them every few days. Keep them away from where children and pets can reach, always. Because anything that draws a roach can draw a curious hand or a curious nose, and we do not take chances with that. And here is the part that gives me a quiet satisfaction every time. This is not new. This is the old bait logic my grandfather used with borax and sugar and a saucer of water. The homemade bait the plain communities passed hand to hand for generations while the outside world was being taught that real pest control comes in a pressurized can with a brand name. The sugar draws. The cheap household powder does the work. The roach carries the end of the colony home in its own belly. The big companies sell a gel that works on this exact principle, a bait the roach carries back to the nest, and they charge you handsomely for it. The principle was never theirs. It was in our kitchens, in saucers, and on cardboard squares before their gel was ever in a tube. They did not invent it. They packaged what we already knew and sold it back to you at a markup, so now you have all 20 threads of it, woven into a handful of plain truths you can act on tonight. Erase the trails with the brown bottle because the bug follows a letter, not its courage. Treat the surface first with peroxide, then with vinegar, one after the other, never sealed together. Soak the mouse runs and the soaked in corners because the urine is the loudest invitation in the house. Seal every pencil width gap with steel wool and a dab of caulk because exclusion is the only thing that lasts. And set the sugar paste where they travel and you do not. So they carry the quiet end of it back into the walls. You cannot reach. One room, one weekend, $1 bottle. Do that, and you will stand in your kitchen next week in the dark and turn on the light, and the counter will be still. No river of ants, no scatter of brown bodies, no greasy little road along the baseboard, just a clean, quiet house, the way a house is supposed to be, the way my mother kept hers with a rag and a brown bottle and not $1 paid to anyone in a uniform. That stillness is the thing they took from you. Not with a crime, with an aisle, with a shelf, with a smiling contract that taught you the simple way could not possibly be enough. You did not lose a product. You lost a piece of knowing how to take care of your own home with your own hands and the cheap, honest things already under your own sink. You just got it back. And that is who you are, I think, if you have stayed with me all the way to here. You are not a person who likes being sold the expensive answer to a cheap problem. You are a person who would rather know how a thing actually works and do it yourself for $1 than pay $300 to never understand it at all. That is not being cheap. That is being free. My people would call it good stewardship, not wasting what the good Lord already set in plain reach. You can call it whatever you like. But it is yours now, and it does not come back out of your wallet every quarter. So do this for me the way I asked at the start. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, your state or your county, and tell me which one is your worst right now. Roaches, ants, or mice. One word. Type it out. Do not just think it, because I read them and I answer what I can, and the next person scrolling needs to see they are not the only one fighting it. Your one word helps a stranger. That is worth the half a minute. And if you would like more of this, the plain ways, the cheap ways, the things the outside world set down and forgot, then come along with us. Not to support a channel to help keep this knowledge from being lost the way it was always meant to be passed, neighbor to neighbor, hand to hand, so the next person does not have to pay to relearn what their own grandmother already knew. Because next time, I am going to show you the one cupboard staple, cheaper than the peroxide, that pulls moisture and odor out of a damp basement so completely that the silverfish and the centipedes and the musty smell simply pack up and leave. The same trick we used in a stone cellar that never once had a dehumidifier and never once needed one. Bring your worst room, I will bring the old way. And between the two of us, I think we can put that brown bottle back where it belongs, right at the front of the shelf, where your grandmother always